Hey friends, welcome to day 6 of our 31 days of watercolor practice for World Watercolor Month. Today we are going to be doing one of my favorite techniques, and that is a value study. It's super important and a lot of fun to do. So let's jump in and get started. Okay friends, welcome to day 6 of our 31 days of watercolor practice for World Watercolor Month. Today we are working on the value scale, and we'll be doing a monochrome painting, meaning using one color but using as many values of that color as possible. So to just refresh your memory, values when we are talking about watercolor are the lightness and the darkness of color. So when we did our color gradient here, we went from a dark value and then slowly made our way to a light value of the color. With watercolor, in order to get a darker value, you use more paint than water. And then to get a lighter value, you use more water than paint. So the first thing we're going to do is do a quick value scale. So I've just taped off a little area here where we're going to do our painting in a minute. But the first thing I want to do is our value scale. So pick any color you like. I'm just going to pick this blue here. And you're going to swish your brush around, make sure it's nice and wet. And you're going to pick up as much paint as possible. That is going to create a dark value of the color you're using. So you can just create a little swatch here of this value, nice and saturated, bright, dark value. Then in order to get a lighter value of this color, all you're going to do is swish your brush in your water a little bit, run it against the side of your jar, your cup, and you're going to swatch it again. It's slightly lighter. Continue to do so. And it's going to slowly make its way lighter and lighter and create a value scale. You can even tap it on your paper towel a little bit if it's too wet. And the more you wash off that color, the lighter the value is going to be. So we use values a lot in watercolor, but in watercolor, you actually want to start light and work your way up to a dark value. You always work light to dark because watercolor is a transparent medium. You're not going to be able to use or layer this light value over a dark color. It just won't work. It's see-through, not going to happen. So what if we want to create this light value, a light wash to start? What you can do is you can put your brush in your paint, put it into your mixing well, add a bunch of water to it, just dip your brush in, water it down. Then before you start painting, I would just tap it on your paper towel a bit. Remember, paper towel is your friend. It helps with water control, and you should be able to create a light value. If that's too light and you want to make it maybe a medium value, you could tap your brush into your paint a little bit more. Make it a little bit darker. This is kind of an indicator of the color or the value that you're using. So that's why I like to bring it over to my mixing well, and it's slightly darker. You can add a little bit more to it and start to make it a little bit darker. Now I want it to be a darker value, so I don't want as much water. So when I tap my brush into my paint, I may not go right into all this water. Maybe I'll just bring it over here a little bit to make sure it's not so watered down. And then to get that really dark value, I'm not even going to use the water. I'm just going to go straight into my painting. Now, you can see here, there's a little bit more texture to it. That's a bit of a drier paint. I'm not using as much water. It's also known as like the dry brush technique, which again, I said I will cover later on. But if you're getting too much, like if you feel this kind of stickiness, this tackiness when you're dipping your brush in your paint, and then you go like this and it's just a lot more, dry, that might mean you have too much paint on your brush, unless you're going for the dry brush texture technique. If that's happening, just add a little bit of water. Make sure there's that little puddle in your well. Still pick up all that paint. It's still going to be nice and dark. You just need a little bit more water to activate it. Okay, so now that we got the value scale down, we're going to create a really simple monochrome mountain painting using different values. So with this, we're going to do a lot of wet on dry technique to achieve the different values and the sharpness of the mountains. So the first thing you're going to want to do is grab a bigger brush because we're going to have to cover this whole area. So I'm just going to use this size 12 here. I'm going to grab my color, make sure it's really nice and watery. We want to use the lightest, value possible. Of course, I drop it all over my painting. It's fine. And I'm just going to apply it to the whole background. I want it as light as can be. So obviously a lot more water than paint. Again, if you notice there's too much water there, it's kind of pooling in areas, tap your brush on your paper towel and just move it all around so it's all evenly wet. Then you're going to let that completely dry, and I'm going to clean this up a little bit. Okay, now that the background is dry, we can move on to our second layer. I know it's really, really light. It barely looks like there's any color, but once we take the tape off, you're going to see a really nice crisp border with that light value. And in watercolor, sometimes the lighter the better. Even though it seems really, really light, those really subtle, delicate colors will really shine through if you use them correctly. So if it's super light and you're wondering if it's made enough of an impact, I promise it has. Okay, so now we're gonna go slightly darker. Please make sure that your background is dry. I'm gonna use the color that's in here already, and I'm just gonna create this mountain shape. So essentially, I'm using the same wash that I used for the background, but because we're layering, we're doing another layer on top, it's gonna be slightly darker. I didn't even really have to add any paint. Okay, you're just doing this kind of jagged edge. Then you're gonna let that completely dry. Okay, now that that is dry, we're gonna do another layer. If you find that it's hard waiting for things to dry, it's taking a long time and you're feeling impatient, one tool I love that I use all the time is a heat tool. It's just a simple craft heat tool that you can get off Amazon, like 15 bucks, 20 bucks. I used to use this for embossing when I was doing stamping, but I use this to dry my paintings really quick. You can also use a really low powered hair dryer and you just move it around very gently. Make sure it's not too hot and it will work perfectly. But if you don't have one, don't worry, you can just let it air dry and get some other things done. Okay, so now that this is dry, I don't have as much paint here as I'd like, so I'm just gonna take a little bit more water and I'm gonna do another layer. I don't need it to be too much darker because again, we're layering on top and it's gonna naturally make it darker. Maybe if you want, you could do like a couple like little trees here if you want to, or you can make it a little bit more rocky, whatever you'd like. Okay, but again, you want to make sure it's a nice like flat wash kind of. You don't want it to be too streaky or anything like that. So nice soft strokes going across. Water is distributed evenly, and then you're going to let that dry. And you're just going to continue this until you get to the darkest value or as many layers as you'd like. Remember, as you start to layer, you can grab slightly more paint to make it darker. If you want to make it even darker, maybe this is your last layer and really go for it, you can add a lot more paint to get that darker value. But just practice the gradual, I guess, gradient from light to dark with this technique, and you can feel free to stop whenever you'd like. I'm going to add a little bird here. Boop. Why not? And I think I'm going to stop there. Let's take off the tape, make sure it's dry first, and we can see our beautiful mountainscape using our value scale. And there we go. And as you can see, that really light wash at the top is a really nice crisp line. You feel like it's really light, but it really shows the delicacy of the sky, and it really gives you great practice for practicing those really light washes. So there is our fun and valuable lesson for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something, and I will see you for day 7. Bye, guys.